in terms of the problems.
The year United won the League, the World Club Cup, the Carling Cup, and the Champions League, you know, all in that year, they made, after the debts had been paid off, they made a profit of £40 million. Now, you would think, for all those achievements, what would you think they'd make?
140 million.
But they made £40 million. Now, that would buy half of Cristiano Ronaldo. It would no longer buy Wayne Rooney. It will not buy Ozil. You know, that was a good year.
He wanted David Villa, didn't he? And he couldn't afford him.
No. Were you surprised that Fergie said this week, we've lost our fire? Which was an interesting comment about the team.
He said it for a reason. He said it to put the fire back in them.
Yeah.
He said it knowing it's going to be reported, knowing it's going to be headlines, and then what he'll do, he'll get the papers and say, see what the papers are saying about you? They're saying you've lost your fire. Like, oh, yes, they are. Well, no, actually, you've said it. We've just reported it. But anyway, it's always our fault.
Has Fergie lost his fire, do you think, or not?
He hasn't, but I think he's right in the fact that the team have that. 4 or 5 years ago, 3-1 up at Everton, you draw 3-3, you win 5-1. You go 2-1 up against Fulham, you know, it's not 2-2. You score the penalty and you score a fourth in the last minute of injury time. They have lost that killer instinct, the edge that.
But that's down to Fergie with buying and selecting and everything.
Well, I think that I wonder if the mentality of the player that he has there across the board, and I think because you've had players coming in and out and new ones and there's young players coming in, old ones coming to the end, I think the whole attitude of you know, like I'd see David Beckham when Man United were 5-1 up running for the final ball to keep it in, to get the cross in, to score the sixth. I don't see that now. Now maybe you could argue that Fergie is losing a bit of his. I mean, you have to remember the guy's 68 who's been doing this now for 40-odd years.
Were you a bit surprised, Neil? I was, personally. I wondered if you agree. At the beginning of the season, when I think as an industry we went absolutely mad over Paul Scholes fluttering a few balls around the pitch in August, you know, and lots of footage was shown, particularly the Sunderland game, where he was bullied out the game by the Sunderland team, and they got the draw. Now, OK, we all know Paul Scholes is a brilliant player, he can play his role within the season, but to be relying at this stage on a 35-year-old player as your architect of your midfield is preposterous. It's ridiculous, and hence that's why
the point you made before about Scholes and Giggs and Neville going out, which they are, but we've known this for 5 years.
Well, exactly.
There should already be the player there who can step in now. Nani is becoming that player, but he should be it now. Anderson is becoming that player, but he should be now.
To be fair, Valencia possibly would have been.
Yeah, but you're not talking about the sentiment, you're talking about
But you're right, Scholes and Giggs should not be relied on.
And also those players, I mean, Carrick hasn't worked out, has it? You know, is Gibson going to come through? Does Fletcher need to take a bigger role? Where, you know,
Fletcher could hardly take a bigger role, that's the problem.
The whole point is
Fletcher is wearing himself out.
But the only point he's relying on Scholes is he has no other flair players to...
No, nobody else to come in.
That's the whole point. And he's never been able to find one. So the whole reason, you know, the little ginger Dynamite's running around, you know, doing everything he possibly can is because there's no one else even anywhere near as good as him in the squad.
Where do you think United will finish in the Premier League this season?
Third.
Behind Chelsea and Manchester City. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Just refer to a story you did on Friday morning, wasn't it? Or Saturday morning, can't remember. That Fergie's had a huge row with Wes Brown, who's not been seen since. Yeah. And the row was, what, a month ago? Or?
It was during the pre-season tour where it was over a night out that I understand he told Brown he couldn't go on for what reason, I don't know, but apparently it was a real, Fergie went incandescent, and since then Brown's played against Rangers, but only because Raphael pulled out late on, ill, and Scunthorpe, which isn't a great vote of confidence, is it? And they even took him to Valencia, and he warmed up and didn't even put him on the bench. And I think there's a lot of football clubs should be looking at buying who was a very talented defender who is now in exile at Manchester United. And he's a better player than Raphael or Fabio, who he seems to think are the future.
The other interesting little twist on United this week, Paddy, was Ryan Giggs coming out and saying that he would like to be one day manager of Manchester United. Can you see that happening? Or do you think when Fergie steps down, you said 2 years earlier, or 2 seasons, that they would go for someone like Mourinho?
It'll depend on the financial situation. I think Mourinho emotionally is very attracted to that job. Very attracted to that job. Personally, I've always had the belief that there should be a spell of joint management. The next manager of Manchester United should work alongside Ferguson for 2 or 3 years. And I think that should already have been put into place. And I think that if Manchester United had the money and the wisdom, they might almost have done that by now. And I mean that with Jose Mourinho. But of course, when they lost the opportunity, Real Madrid came in.
The thing about Mourinho is he likes resurrecting fallen greats, doesn't he? In a sense,
no, in this case, what he wants to do with Manchester United is to do what Ferguson did, which is to recreate history. To what he said anyway a year ago was that his dream now is to do a long-term project, and there's only one country in Europe. Yeah. Maybe there's a little feather in our caps in England. There's only one country in Europe.
He might want Manchester United, but Manchester United don't want him.
They can't afford him.
No, but it's not about can't afford him. I don't actually think they want.
Because of the style of play.
Style of play, ethos in terms of bringing players through. The man they're looking at is David Moyes, who they see as the solid guy to bring in. And actually, this point you were making about working hand in hand, I think that was Ferguson's idea with Queiroz.
Yes.
But because Ferguson kept saying, I'm going to stay, I'm going to stay, I'm going to stay, Queiroz went and did other things. Every job he's done since has been absolutely disaster.
But I think Moyes and Mourinho, because of the relationships that Ferguson has, I mean, Mourinho absolutely adores Ferguson.
Do you know where I think Mourinho might end up? If a little, it's a hunch, it's maybe a ridiculous one, eventually. 3 or 4 years' time, Liverpool. Do you think that he becomes the manager that wins the title back for them? Can you imagine how he would go down?
Well,
we'd be revered like Shankly. I'm telling you, that's my hunch, because there are only a few clubs he can go back to, and I think resurrecting Liverpool, the fact he knows they didn't like him,
there won't be a great love amongst the Man United fans for Jose Mourinho coming in either. I don't think they buy into his arrogance. I don't think they buy into what he says. I don't think there's a great love there for him, and you can't have Alex Ferguson going and bring in as big a character, as big a name, and as him. I think
it's true that Matt Busby and Sir Alex Ferguson. If you talk about the ethos of
don't want Mourinho.
Don't want Mourinho.
If you talk about the ethos, and I can understand what they mean, because if you look at the ethos of Manchester United as created by Sir Matt Busby and then recreated by Ferguson, for all Ferguson's faults, he's not an egomaniac in the way that Jose Mourinho is. In other words, Manchester United, he's very clever.
He talks about the club and the players.
He gives the impression that Manchester United is above himself in his list of priorities. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But he and Sir Matt Busby both were successful in giving that impression.
Let's just